All right, I'm gonna have to do this again with the whole orientation locked thing. Man. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen, but we're gonna have to do this the long way again. Like I said, iPhone 14, I've never had this issue with any other phone, but iPhone 14, I don't want to say I can't because I know there's a way. Most of the time I don't have an issue, but it says portrait mode is locked. I checked portrait mode, it's not locked. So I don't understand why when I rotate this to landscape mode, it says portrait orientation locked, rotate device back, and that's only for YouTube Live. It doesn't happen any other time but YouTube Live. So I don't get it. But post a comment if you could help me out. I'd greatly appreciate it. But we are going to go ahead and have to do this the long way. So I know once it posts to YouTube that it's going to look like this and the screen it's not going to be landscape and the whole rest of it is going to be blacked out, which I don't like. So, in an effort to try to do live streams, I might just either continue to do like this, or if you want landscape mode and looks better, then maybe I will just do these pre-recorded and then upload it that way. You can have landscape mode when you watch this. Otherwise, if you're just content with listening, you don't have to look at me. This is perfectly fine with me. I hope that you're here for the actual content, so I greatly appreciate all my subscribers and viewers. As we get into this week's live stream edition of Scout Team Sports, again, I am your host, DeValian. Not too much to go through on college football, only because I am bummed out. And if you saw any piece of the Friday night Colorado Buffalo game where I was like, okay, this is a team that they definitely should beat, and they got blown out. Shedeur was done in the first quarter. Like, they were just harassing him so much and beating him down so much, and he didn't even, this was, to me, was uncharacteristic of Shedeur. He would stay in the pocket, and even though he knew pressure was coming, and it's almost like he refused to scramble. A particular one was a 3rd and 5. He could have easily ran forward and got the 5 yards himself. He's got the ability. He is Prime's son. And he chose to just stay in the pocket and take a sack. He could have easily run. If nobody's open, I get it. But you know how that O-line is. You know how that O-line is. One play, they protected him really well, and he still stayed in the pocket and took a sack. All the other times, he's running for his life. He doesn't have time to throw. You got to do what you got to do. Protect yourself. That's the most thing I'm concerned about. I mean, hopefully things should be better. Next year, they're going to come back. Off-season recruiting. Prime should be able to get the guys that he wants. Let me make sure this lighting is good. Prime should be able to get the guys that he wants as far as the O-line. Most importantly, that's as bright as it goes. Most importantly, sorry about that, to protect Shedeur. That's the most important thing, is protecting Shedeur. And then, of course, that D-line needs to get better to help out Shiloh and Travis Hunter, if Travis Hunter is going to stay, and then they can have a decent team. But I was hoping for at least 6-6. They should have beat Arizona. They almost did, but then they lost at the end. And then I was figuring this would have been the 6th win. Or actually, to me, they should have been 7-5, because they should have never lost to Stanford. They were up 29-0 at the half. They let Stanford come all the way back and beat them in overtime. That should have been their 5th win. Arizona would have been their 6th, and this one would have been their 7th. I'm not expecting them to beat Utah next week, and I never was. But every other loss I can kind of understand. Losing to ranked Oregon State, I get that. But they were supposed to be 7-5 and go into a bowl game, and now they've been eliminated from bowl contention. And it's just Shador was done in the first quarter. Like you could just see it. I've never seen him like that. As rough as it gets, he holds his head up. As rough as it gets, he doesn't cover his face up with a towel. As rough as it gets, he's still trying to lead his team, and he was demoralized. He was out of it, and you could see the pain in Coach Prime's face too, throughout the whole game. He was hurt. He was hurt by how this was going. He was hurt. And yeah, it's unfortunate, but the season's done. I don't expect, even if they were to somehow beat Utah, the only way that could happen is if Utah just doesn't care, because Utah probably was not going to, win the Pac-12 championship and then, or even compete for the Pac-12 championship game. And they don't really care what bowl game they go to. If that's the case, then maybe Colorado could slip by if they just decide they don't care. But that's the only way that happens. But Colorado, that their offensive line, if this is not evident that linemen win games, this football team, if this is not the evidence that you need to understand that linemen win games, they're just as important, if not more important, than the quarterback. I know everybody say, oh, it's the quarterback, it's the quarterback. Look what's happened to Shador. He was supposed to be a Heisman contender. Now, because he keeps getting hit in the mouth 17 times just in the first quarter alone, he's out of the running. So, linemen win games. I said it. And so, just to go through a little bit of what's going on with college football right now today, as far as notable matchups. Yeah, I haven't touched that much on the Harbaugh thing because really I'm tired of Harbaugh. I really am. That's why I don't touch on it that much. It's controversy wherever he goes. His whole demeanor is not. It's like you can't get anything out of him in terms of just like having a level-headed conversation. I get some people don't communicate that well. I get that. That's fine. I don't have anything against introverts or extroverts or anything like that. I'm an introvert myself. But, just because I'm doing YouTube doesn't mean I'm not an introvert. There's controversy where he was. And then, he was a Niners coach. And then he had an argument with upper management with the Niners, and he left there. Now he's at Michigan. Now there's this problem. Now it seems to be a problem wherever he goes. And there was a talk about he wanted to go back to the NFL. He might coach the Raiders. I'm like, no, there's just too many issues. There's too many issues with you. I like Antonio Pierce. I like him as, he was born a Raider and former Super Bowl champion. He's got the experience. He's got the leadership. They're a Raider team now. They win Raider games the Raider way now. They just need a better quarterback. And I'm good with that. I want to see that happen, especially if he could possibly lead them to the playoffs. I want to see Antonio Pierce get a full offseason and see what he can do with his guys, or who he wants in their coaching and who he wants in there at the quarterback position. And who they want to pick up in free agency. I want to see what he can do as a Super Bowl winning former linebacker. So I want to see what he can do. I don't want us to make the same mistake we did when we let Rich Bisaccia go. He, as an interim coach, led the Raiders to the playoffs, and then they let him go for this quote-unquote big name, which we just fired. And I don't want them to do the same thing again for a big name, to where he might be there for 2 years, then he gets in an argument with Mark Davis, and then he's out. Like, I don't know. Let's get something long term. Let's get something that fits us. But going back to the whole college thing, Michigan's not gonna have a problem with anybody until they get to the Ohio State game, which of course Harbaugh is suspended until after that. I don't see why you suspend him for the regular season and then you don't suspend him for the bowl game or the possible college football championship if they somehow beat Ohio State. And now they have their linebackers coach fired or assistant coach fired because he was the one who apparently covered up or tried to delete the information as far as the whole sign stealing thing. I'm like, dude, y'all, sports people know other sports people, okay? They're not totally, I don't care what they say, they're not totally oblivious to whatever else is going on in the sports world. You know what happened to the Houston Astros. You know about, if you are it don't matter if you don't even follow baseball, as a college football head coach, you know what happened. So why would you then try to possibly do the same thing? I'm not saying whether he's guilty or not, because I guess it, technically it's been proven, or it has, I'm not sure, but they've suspended him. So there has to be something there. Why would you do that? You've seen what the consequences are. And don't think that just because he's suspended now, that there are not going to be any more repercussions after this is over. There's always going to be extra repercussions, because people are people. They're envious, they're jealous, they're upset, they're angry, they've been wronged. Other colleges are going to have something to say. Ohio State's going to say that's the only reason that Harbaugh was able to beat us, is because he was stealing signs. For the majority of the years that Harbaugh has been at Michigan, most of those years he wasn't able to beat Ohio State. Now is not just till recently that he's been able to beat Ohio State. So what does that tell you? So, that's why I don't touch on the Harbaugh stuff, because it just irritates me. And I'm like, as good as a coach as he is, wherever he's gone, he's raised the program up, but there's always some issue, whether it's him and management and the personality clash, or there's always some type of issue with him. I'm tired of it being an issue. So no, I don't want, as good as he could be, as good as prominence as he could be with the Raiders, I don't, for a flash in the pan at the pro level, I don't see it. I don't see us being successful without him creating some type of controversy. We've already had the sign stealers in the NFL, Belichick, and the coach that we got from Belichick, we just fired, should never hired him in the first place. So why are we going to go down that road again? Now he's been accused of sign stealing there. Now we going to take him and put him in the NFL again? Come on, man. It's just too much. It's too much. I get making mistakes, but repetitive, that means you haven't learned your lesson. That means you don't care. Or always a clash with somebody wherever you go. I'm not talking about haters, but I'm talking about you always having a problem with somebody wherever you go, and then it creates turmoil to where you leave the team, or something devastating happens to the team. Anyway, we'll get back to the college football. See, that's why I don't talk about Harbaugh. That's exactly why I don't. Maybe you like this from me. Maybe if you want more of this, you want more of the venting, I can do that. Anyway, we get back to it. Michigan is already in the second quarter blowing out Maryland 23-3. Alabama's playing their late season. They seem to have a knack for doing their late season cupcake games. It used to be most teams did their cupcake game at the beginning of the season, pump the student section up, get everybody amped up, woo! Or second or third game season. Alabama seems to have a knack for waiting until late in the season. And I'm thinking maybe that's because, they realize late in the season, just in case we have a loss, or just in case, we're slipping in the polls or in the rankings, then we can get this cupcake game to boost us up again. And I'm like, that shouldn't work. It shouldn't work. But I wouldn't doubt that it would work, because it's the SEC, and they always have an advantage in that regard in terms of who they impress and who likes them. So Louisville, 10th ranked, losing to Miami, actually. 12th ranked Penn State is barely beating Rutgers right now in the second. Oklahoma tied with BYU, 14th ranked Oklahoma. 24th ranked Tulane. They're beating Florida Atlantic. 22nd ranked Utah at 17th ranked Arizona. Could be interesting. I'm not interested. Neither one of those teams are doing anything. I will say that this is probably interesting just because they have bounced back up to the number one spot, that being Georgia, and they are taking on 18th ranked Tennessee, an SEC East matchup there. And so Georgia is, for the most part, barely winning their games. And so you wonder, at some point, will they, they barely win all their games. So at some point, will they barely lose one? A team will slip past them and then they'll barely lose. Because if you're always thinking, oh, I'm barely winning, and you never are able to really put a team away, that one team can all of a sudden rise up and just barely beat you by 1 point. It can happen. It's happened many a times. I don't know if that's what you would classify as a trap game. I don't like saying trap game because it's like, it's a whole guessing game. It's a trap game. This is a trap game. This is a trap game. I remember when Alabama was on top, they were undefeated and they were winning on time. It was like some talking media head wanted to predict every single game was a trap game for them. I'm like, what? No, you can't. That doesn't make any sense. There's that one team that they're overlooking that's a quote unquote dark horse that you can say it's a trap game because they're overlooking them, but that team is really good. They fight really hard. They could possibly keep it a low scoring game or make it a shootout and barely beat the undefeated, undisputed team that everybody thinks nobody can beat. That's a trap game. You can't be saying this is a trap game. This is a trap game. This is a trap game. No, it's not. A trap game is a trap game. But you got talking media heads that want to predict several games are going to be trap games. Like, come on. It's not, that totally defeats the purpose. So I don't like saying trap game, but I'm saying that they could, possibly be upset by a team if they don't put teams away. I like that better. Now, if you still want to call it a trap game yourself, fine, but I don't. But yeah, that's one to watch. I would say if anything for college football is Georgia at 18th ranked Tennessee. I always wanted to go to a Tennessee Volunteers game because I see their fans and I just see that there's a good time. When I was in Mississippi for graduate school, that was one place that I failed to get to was a Tennessee Volunteers home football game. But yeah, if you're a Tennessee Volunteers fan or you have an opportunity to go to a Tennessee Volunteers home football game, I say go. I think it's a really good experience from what I've seen and what I've heard. You got 19th ranked Notre Dame hosting Wake Forest. Not much there. North Carolina, I still will say, is impressive at 8-2. I didn't think that they would be 8-2. 20th ranked North Carolina. A lot of team that a lot of people think is still going to possibly make their way into the bowl championship series, college football playoff. What am I saying? Going old school is the Oregon Ducks at 6th ranked, and they are 9-1. So you know they're pretty much going to face Washington again, probably in the. They're going to have to face Washington again, I would think, in the Pac-12 championship, the last Pac-12 championship, because it's getting fully dismantled after this. And we'll see. That'll be an interesting matchup. And Washington only beat them by 3 points in a high-scoring game last time. So I think the way they've kind of let go of the whole division thing, I think, in the Pac-12, and it's just the top two teams face off for the conference championship now. So that ought to be interesting when we get to that. But of course, they will destroy Arizona State. Oklahoma State, 23rd ranked. Florida State is interesting to me because Florida State, out of the teams that are remaining, Florida State is 4th ranked. Out of the teams that are remaining that are undefeated, to me, Florida State and maybe somewhat combined with Washington, I think it's a toss-up between those two. Those are the two teams that get the least amount of attention from the media. Ohio State gets all the attention. Michigan because of Harbaugh, and they're still winning even though they don't have Harbaugh. And then I would dare say and then of course Georgia because they're in the SEC. And I would even dare say like Oregon gets more attention than they do, which is weird. But Oregon gets more attention than they do, and then I don't hear too many. Alabama gets more attention than they do, And I don't hear and see that much talk, or enough talk, if you will, about fifth ranked Washington and fourth ranked Florida State as far as getting into the college football playoff and possibly winning it all. I like when, if they're the quote unquote the dark horse, I like when it's a team that seems to be pretty tough, pretty sturdy, and they are rolling along. Of course, they've got their late cupcake game facing or hosting North Alabama. And just going to go through what their rankings are and what they see as far as Florida State. So averaging 38 points a game. Sometimes they have a tough game. Passing yards, averaging 303 yards a game. Rushing yards, 153. That's still something. But they're only allowing 17 points a game average. 211 passing yards, 139 rushing yards. To me, that can get it done, because you know how college football games can break open offensively. And the fact that they have a defense that can do that, I think they can compete with anybody who is undefeated as well. Washington, they can compete with Ohio State. They can compete with Michigan. They can compete with Georgia. So the fact that we have 5 undefeated teams now, and we're going to have 4 for this last time that we only have 4 teams in the college football playoff, which I wish was not going away, but it's going to go away. Ohio State and Michigan are going to face each other. So one of those is not going, because it's going to be a late loss, and one of them is not going. So all intents and purposes, that the final 4 are undefeated, which I would love to see. It might be, and what I'm hoping for should be, Washington, Florida State, Georgia, and Ohio State / Michigan. So I think 4 teams undefeated in the college football playoff would be great. And that's, of course, barring that. There's no one standing in Florida State's way of winning their conference championship, in my opinion. Oregon is going to face Washington, so that's going to be tough, because if Oregon wins, then they would probably bounce in. And then you've got Georgia. I don't see Georgia having too much of an issue with Alabama. What it looks like it's going to be Alabama that they face. I still think Georgia's a better team, but they've got to face them nonetheless in the SEC championship game. Then you got, of course, whoever wins between Ohio State and Michigan will probably more than likely walk through their college conference championship game. And so a lot of things could change. A lot of things could change with these conference championship games, or the Ohio State-Michigan game, and then everybody else's conference championship game in terms of who gets in. You might see every single team who gets in with 1 loss. If things go the wrong way for these undefeated teams, and it could. But I'm hoping to see, for the final time of there being a 4-team college football playoff, 4 undefeated teams. I think that would be great. So that's what I'm hoping for. But yeah, I'm hoping for Washington, hoping for Florida State, and then I don't care whether it's Ohio State or Michigan, and then Georgia. So I'm hoping for that as far as a Final 4 college football playoff. So now we're going to get to the NFL. We've got some things to discuss. My goodness. Predicted right on that Thursday night football game, but what I was not expecting was that now Joe Burrow is out for the season. And with a broken and torn ligament in his wrist, he is done for the season. I think he probably could play, but I think, the calf and him coming back from the calf, and now this is like, we got to shut it down. Just had Deshaun Watson go down, done for the season. Now Burrow's down, so now literally it's between the Ravens and the Steelers again. Just when you thought, okay, the Bengals, they're solidified as a legitimate team consistently every year to contend for winning the division, going to the Super Bowl, and then these things happen. It's like, man, what a blow. What a blow. And then Cleveland still is a nice, good, scrappy team, but it's like, you see how Deshaun Watson played. in that game against the Ravens when they beat the Ravens. They're going to need that type of play moving forward, and they're not going to get that from their backup. They're just not. You know, PJ can do some things, but they're not going to get that from their backup the way he was playing. And they hadn't been getting that from Deshaun himself most of the season. Now when they finally get it, and now he's hurt. Yeah, that's a blow. And then you've got Pittsburgh, who, you know, yeah, they beat bad teams, but still, they're 6-3. And they realize that Kenny Pickett is not the best at all. I would even put him in the top 15 of quarterbacks. But they find a way to get it done. They work with his talents. They work around what he can do. And they're scrappy. You know, it's mostly about their defense. And they get the job done. So, yeah, it's a blow. But I think, yeah, the division title is eventually going to come down to Pittsburgh and Baltimore. So we'll see how that goes. But, yeah, just another devastating blow with another quarterback out for the season. 2 in the same division in the same week. Deshaun is done on Monday after his Sunday game, and then Burrow is done on Friday after the Thursday night football game. So I'm like, man, so many people going down with season-ending injuries, and it literally might be, I hate to say it, the Kansas City Chiefs winning another Super Bowl just because everybody else is going down. Because everybody else is not healthy, and as long as Pat Mahomes stay healthy, you know the Chiefs are a contender to win the Super Bowl. I hate it, I really do, and because it seems like the AFC is much, to me, is getting weaker by the week. Weaker, W-E-A-K-E-R, by the week. W-E-E-K. It's getting weaker by the week when it was supposed to be so strong and such a powerhouse. And now it's like franchise quarterbacks and key players on teams are dropping and out of the season, and it just makes it easier for Pat Mahomes. Yeah, you know, it's still not going to be as easy because they don't have Eric Bieniemy. Remember, this is their first year without Eric Bieniemy. That's a reason why they have 2 losses now, and I would dare say they should have more. They should have more, but you know, they're still one of the elite teams because Pat Mahomes is in the mix. But it's like when the Patriots were up. I mean, all the Patriots, and when Tom Brady was, you know, this Patriots dynasty. Yeah, it was a dynasty. I'm willing to admit that. But when it was during the dynasty, if you think about it, they only had to face 2 to 3 legitimately strong teams. It was never a challenge in their division until the end, and then Tom Brady was already on his way out. But other than that, to get to the Super Bowl, all they had to do was either beat Peyton Manning or a Ravens defense that had Joe Flacco. That was it. If you think about it, the only time that Pittsburgh was always a powerhouse, but they rarely even faced Pittsburgh in the playoffs. Either they would lose rarely, like the Jets or somebody would beat the Patriots in the playoffs and then Tom Brady would be out, or Pittsburgh would lose to somebody else and they would never face each other in the playoffs when both teams were strong. I remember the one time it was going to be, they were the 2 best teams in AFC. It was going to be Pittsburgh, and it was second-ranked Pittsburgh, and it was first-ranked number 1 seed, the Patriots. You knew they were going to face in the AFC Championship, and here come the Jaguars going to Pittsburgh and beat the Steelers. I'm like, what? Jaguars going to Pittsburgh, beat the second seed Steelers, and then they eventually lose to the Patriots in the AFC Championship game. Every time, most of the time when Pittsburgh and the Patriots were at their strongest in the AFC, they did not meet in the playoffs because one of them went down before they would have met in the conference championship. So other than that, really in terms of the Patriots and Tom Brady, who they had to face when they had to get to the Super Bowl was either Peyton Manning with the Colts or the Broncos, or Joe Flacco and the Ravens. That was it. So if you only got to deal with those teams, and then half the time those teams get beat or upstart or they don't make it, you're basically walking to the Super Bowl every year. You're walking to the Super Bowl every year unless something devastating happens You all of a sudden get upstarted and beat in the playoffs and you weren't ready for it, or Tom Brady is hurt and he doesn't, he's done for the season at the beginning of the season, so they weren't getting anywhere that year. But if there's really no competition, you're going to make it there every year, or you're going to be consistent every year. And that's what the Chiefs are experiencing right now. Who are they facing legitimately that is a contender to beat them, to stop them from getting to the Super Bowl? There's only two teams so far that have been somewhat of an upstart to do that. That was the Patriots before Tom Brady left, because that was Pat Mahomes' first AFC Championship game, and they lost that one in overtime. And then it's been the Bengals. Other than that, who has been a legitimate contender to stop the Chiefs in the AFC? Nobody's strong enough. And now Joe Burrow's hurt. So now the only other teams that you can think of would probably, to me, be the Baltimore Ravens or the Steelers if they, if they go into KC and they, keep it a low-scoring game and they beat Pat Mahomes. Again, that's only two teams. When 7 teams make it into the playoffs and only 2 of those teams can possibly beat you, your odds are so much greater in terms of getting to the Super Bowl. And to me, that's not competition. That's a lack of competition. That's not greatness. That's just a lack of competition. And meanwhile, you look at the NFC, you don't know. I mean, there's at least 4 teams, maybe 5 teams who could all of a sudden make it in the NFC. If this person goes down, this person gets hurt, you don't know who's going to make it, even if those people are healthy. From the NFC is so much tougher in terms of the competition that they're going up against each other. Now that Joe Burrow's done, you know that even if he is playing, they always are a threat to beat the Chiefs. You know that. So now it's either Lamar and the Ravens or maybe the Steelers. The Chargers they're always little brother to the Chiefs. They're never going to be able to come up and upstart and beat the Chiefs. I don't see it ever happening. And then you look at the AFC South, who is there? You got the Jaguars on top. They can't beat the Chiefs. They've already proven that, even this season. You go to the AFC North, that's what I just talked about, Ravens and Steelers. And then the Dolphins. The Dolphins are unknown. The Bills seem to can't beat the Chiefs either. So it's the Ravens, maybe the Steelers, maybe the Dolphins. From what they've shown you so far, and they faced each other, does that look like it can happen? I don't think so. So more teams are going to have to get better in the AFC to stop the Chiefs from dominating everything, because if just one guy can dominate everything because everybody else gets hurt, that's lack of competition, because obviously your competition is hurt, so they can't play against you. Does that make any sense? Anyway, let's get on to the predictions for the games. Of course, the Ravens beat the Bengals on Thursday night. We've got the Cowboys at the Panthers. That's not much to talk about. Cowboys should roll in that one. We'll move on to the next one. Steelers at Browns. Both teams 6-3. Even though Deshaun Watson is hurt, I don't see that Kenny Pickett is that great of a quarterback. So I'm not just going to say, oh, they have a better quarterback because Deshaun Watson's out and that's why they went. No. I still think, it's the Steelers are, you could say that they're 25th ranked in defense, but they play so much harder than their 25th ranked defense. Their defense undeniably plays so much harder than 25th ranked defense. This one's tough, but I think that the Steelers will take it. I think that they'll, again, a low scoring 20-point game or less for both teams. So this will be a low scoring game. Yes, the Browns have the number 1 defense, what it's showing, but when they can get something done on offense and Deshaun Watson's not in, and if PJ can handle himself, if he can, great. If he can't, it's going to be a long day. It's going to be a long Yeah, morning, if you will. Um, and then to me, it's rushing attack versus rushing attack. It's going to be running game and defense versus running game and defense. I don't think either passing game is going to be a factor in this game. If you take the passing game away from the Browns, yes, they are a run first team, but they need that passing element. They need that threat of the passing game to be able to work effectively, in my opinion. You take that away from them, and you know they're going to be just running the football. Kareem Hunt's going to be doing screen passes and whatnot. That, to me, that works in the favor of the Steelers. So I'm picking the Steelers, unfortunately, because I wanted to see the Browns come up. I wanted to see different teams come up in a division, and I like how scrappy the Browns are. I like how they fight. But I think the X factor is not having Deshaun Watson. I don't know what PJ Walker's going to do. So I got to go with the Steelers. And for, like I said, as bad as their rankings are, they're 6-3. So, Tomlin always has his team ready to fight. So I got to go with Steelers, unfortunately, in this one. Steelers over Browns. Next, we've got Bears at Lions. Not much to talk about here. Yes, Justin Fields is back, but they're clearly going against a better team. I don't see the Lions having too much of an issue here. So I will pick the Lions over the Bears. They're better in every ranking. 4th ranked offense, 7th ranked defense, 6th ranked in passing, 7th in rushing. Just very happy, like I said, for a team that's been down for so long, and they should be on their way to winning the division. They've got to win these crucial, critical division games. And, their biggest matchup is going to be Minnesota. So they've got to be ready for that, but they can't be overlooking. These are division games. They're still very important, even if it's a 3-17 that you're facing. So go in there. You're at home. Take care of business. They should be able to do that. Picking the Lions over the Bears. Now, these two, you never know what you're going to get with them. The Chargers and the Packers. Packers at 3-6 with Jordan Love. And yeah, it's going to be a struggle. I mean, this is his first full season. So, I mean, even if you've been sitting on the bench for a couple of years, everybody's not going to be an Aaron Rodgers. Sit behind Brett Favre and then you just get to go from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers. Everybody's not going to have that. Everybody's not going to get that. Even the Packers themselves are not going to continuously be able to keep that going. So Jordan Love is struggling. They have to rely on the running game. The Chargers, to me, are so flippity-floppity, but they're still a better team than the Packers, in my opinion. There's always talk about firing the coach. The Chargers firing their coach. They should have never let go of their last coach, but you know how that goes with black head coaches. But hey, they're in it. They're in it right now, and they're 4-5. But I mean, I'd be surprised if they even make the playoffs this year, just because of the way the AFC is going. But they're always going to be the backup to the Chiefs, and so other than that, there's not much to say. Their defense is still wildly inconsistent. They don't have Mike Williams. To me, he was the X factor on their offense, the TO build. So it's rough, but they're still a better team than the Packers. So I'm going to pick the Chargers over the Packers. Next, we've got Cardinals at Texans. The returning Kyler Murray. He did all right. He did pretty good last week. I was saying even with Kyler Murray, it's still going to be rough. But I like the Texans, man. I like C.J. Stroud. I've been liking him. So I got to go with the Texans in this one. Even with Kyler Murray being back. I don't know. I would put Kyler Murray on a pitch count because you aren't going to make the playoffs this year. I get it. You want him to get his legs under him. You want him to get, back into the rhythm, play a little bit. But him playing full games or playing out the rest of the season, I just don't think is a smart move for you moving forward. So I would have him on a pitch count with him coming back from injury like this. But I'm not the coach. I'm not the GM or the owner. So, it is how it goes. They're going to rely mostly on their running game. Kyler Murray's going to be a part of the running game which to me is still a problem because if he's going to be able to focus on being a quarterback, I get that you're a dual threat, but it has to be, the whole point of a dual threat is that he can do both, not that he's automatically going to do both all the time. That doesn't make it a dual threat, because if that means you're a threat, if you're going to do both all the time, then they're always going to have a spy waiting for you. They're always going to have a spy waiting for you, and then you're not a threat anymore because they've already got the threat covered. A threat means that you can catch somebody slipping, you can get somebody, you can threaten them, you can threaten to take advantage of their weakness. And if there's nobody spying on the quarterback, then he runs, then they've threatened you because you're not ready, you're not prepared for it. That's what a threat is in football. But if they've always got a spy for him because they already know he's always going to have a possibility to run, then the dual threat thing to me is nullified. So if he's going to be like that, I think they should have him on a pitch count, because you can't keep running around, especially coming back from this injury, running around all the time. And if you can't be in the pocket and you have to escape, I get that, but running plays and running the way that he runs, like a little road runner, and they don't have a running back that will take the load off, or at least a running back where they will rely on him to run the football, and Kyler Murray will do less running, because I think it's just in Kyler Murray, he's going to want to run. So to me, that's not a recipe for success. So I would have him on a pitch count. Honestly, it was like, the season is done. Unfortunately, at 2-8, the season's done. You're not good in any aspect. Yeah, you got the 6th ranked rushing attack, but that's only mustered you up 2 wins. So what is that worth, really? Not much. To me, the Texans are better in every way except for the rushing attack, but with this being a passing league, and as long as C.J. Stroud continues to be C.J. Stroud, he's a very smart young quarterback, and that pays dividends. The most physically gifted quarterback doesn't pay nearly as many dividends as the smartest quarterback. But if you get both of those together, yeah, you've got a gem. You've got a gold mine there. So Texans over the Cardinals. Next, we got Titans versus Jaguars. Jaguars, they're pretty much going to win the division again. But that they're not better than the Chiefs. They're not better than the Ravens. They could probably get beat by the Browns or the Steelers in the playoffs. They did the whole thing where they came back and beat the Chargers after being down 31-0, but you're not going to be able to make that type of comeback against every team in the playoffs. You get down 31-0 to the Ravens, you're not winning that, to me, in the playoffs. I don't see how the Steelers could score 31 points. But if you get down by too many points against the Steelers, that defense will break their necks trying to make sure that you don't come back. You get down 31 points to the Chiefs, no. 31 points to the Bills, no. You're not coming back from that. So, the Chargers are probably the only team that could have happened. It really did. Sorry, Mike. You're watching this. Anyway, the Jaguars are better than the Titans. Titans are 3-6 for a reason. They can't do anything offensively. I told you Ryan Tannehill was not that guy, and I was right. So you get what you get. And I still hold it against him for what he said about Malik Willis. I don't care where Malik Willis is now. That shouldn't have been his mentality. I don't appreciate that selfish mentality, especially at this pro level or in any sport. And so I'm happy he's not successful, because you're going to have that type of attitude. Especially, I ain't never heard him have that attitude against a backup white quarterback. So you're going to have that type of attitude, fine. Go ahead and be unsuccessful. That's fine with me. But picking the Jaguars over the Titans. Next, we've got my Raiders at the Dolphins. Very happy in the sense that we are past the Josh McDaniels era. Sad that it had to be in the middle of the season, which wish it could have been before the season started. But nonetheless, Antonio Pierce has this team playing like a Raider team. With that being said, it's still a quarterback that Josh McDaniels picked. And although he is playing his heart out, you're going up against Tua. You're going up against, I mean, the Raiders defense is now the heart soul of the team. After years and years of hearing about the offense and the defense is so bad, the Raiders are the strength. They were the strength of the team last year. Most people don't realize that. But they were the strength of the team last year. They're definitely the strength of the team this year. But when that offense can't sustain drives, cannot keep up with this team, it's going to be rough. The Dolphins, to me, the Dolphins defense is nothing to write home about. But what happens is if the strength of the Raiders is their defense, okay, and then the strength of Miami is their offense. If the Raiders defense is on the field too long because the offense of the Raiders can't get anything going, that good Raiders defense is going to get tired. They're going to get tired. They're going to give up points. So that strength of the Raiders is going to give up points because their offense isn't helping out enough. So unfortunately, and I know what this says as far as the Dolphins defense being 9th ranked, but they're still suspect to me. Their defense is still very suspect. You see how many points they've given up in certain games. But their offense is elite. So it's hard to, especially in the regular season right now, it's hard to beat this when your offense can't muster consistency and you've got a rookie quarterback who's not CJ Stroud. So if you got a quarterback who's not a rookie quarterback who's not CJ Stroud, you know, bless his heart, Aiden O'Connell, you know, it's better to have him in there than it is Jimmy G. But yeah, it's just, this is a little too much right now. Maybe if they were to build up to this and get stronger, get better, and he had more starts under his belt, and maybe they face the Dolphins last game of the season, then I'd say, okay, maybe they've improved, they've gotten better, and they can handle this now. They can make it a fight. But this is not going to be that in this regard. So unfortunately, I got to pick the Dolphins over my Raiders. Next, we've got Giants at Commanders. I'm going to pick the Commanders. The Giants are just horrible. But then let me go over this stat here that I want to go over, because all credit goes to Eric Bieniemy. Very, 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 I guess they're going to rebuild the Commanders, because if you traded away Chase Young and Montez Sweat, your two best defensive players, not just defensive linemen or defensive ends, not just edge rushers, but your two best defensive players, like you obviously are like, to me, you're just kind of hanging the season up. I mean, they already know they're not better than the Eagles, they're not better than the Cowboys, so they really have no shot at getting to the playoffs. But they have a 13th ranked offense and they're 5th in passing. Do you really think that's because of Sam Howell, who is the quarterback? No! It is because of Eric Bieniemy. They have a 5th ranked passing offense because of Eric Bieniemy. Sam Howell, 67% completion percentage, 2,783 yards, 17 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. Now, the 9 interceptions is a killer thing, but the fact that he has 17 touchdowns, I'm like, okay, that's Eric Bieniemy. And so I just hope, like I said, I hope that as long as Eric Bieniemy doesn't become the head coach of the Chargers, because it's looking like they might not want their coach anymore. And Andy Reid is not going to retire anytime soon, so it won't be the Chiefs. And it looks like the Broncos are starting to make a turnaround, so Sean Payton will probably stay there. And Bill Belichick just signed a contract extension. So I'm cool, like I said, with Eric Bieniemy going to any team other than the Patriots, Chargers, Chiefs, or Broncos. He can go anywhere else. If we don't keep Antonio Pierce, I would love to have Eric Bieniemy. Those are the only two coaches I want. I don't want Harbaugh. I want either Antonio Pierce to stay or Eric Bieniemy. I mean, and honestly, yeah, Eric Bieniemy, to me, he's deserving whatever people want to say about his past. Look, there have been people that have been in the NFL and they've done bad things in their past too. I don't see why his has to be so much worse. To me, it's not than what other people have done. And they, and these are rumors and allegations and whatnot. But if number one, if things were so bad in terms of what the rumors are about Eric Bieniemy, why was he allowed to be an offensive coordinator this long? If these rumors are true, then he shouldn't even be an offensive coordinator in the league, much less be contending for a head coaching position. So I can't really believe those head coaching allegations, because if that was the case, I mean, I can't believe those allegations about his personal life, because if that was the case, he shouldn't even be an offensive coordinator. Definitely not for this long. It don't matter if he's under Andy Reid. Don't matter if he's with the Chiefs. He shouldn't be there. So you missed me with the whole allegations thing as far as his personal life. But going back into this, I'm like I said, if we don't keep Antonio Pierce, then I want Eric Bieniemy as the head coach of the Raiders. But look what he's doing with Sam Howell, man. Look what he's doing with Sam Howell. And then if Eric Bieniemy could become the head coach of a team and he can pick his quarterback, I mean, what do we? Come on. You gotta be intrigued by that. You have to be. You can't tell me you're a sports fan or football fan and not be intrigued by that. You just have to hope that he doesn't do that as a division rival to your team. And that's what I'm hoping for. Either you play for my team or you play for a team that's not my division rival or the Patriots. Oh, man. Anyway, we'll pick the Commanders because they have Eric Bieniemy. You normally say, oh, because they have this player, that player. No, because they have this offensive coordinator. That's why they're better than the Giants. Picking the Commanders over the Giants. Next, we have Buccaneers at 49ers. You know the Bucs. You know their story. 3-0, and then this gigantic losing streak. And then they get one back, and they get their fourth win. But, I mean, the Niners, after their bye week, they came back and showed why they are who they are. And they know now is not the time to be slipping up, especially in the NFC, with a game like this and trying to still come back after dropping the ball against a team like the Bucs. There's just no way. Even if Brock Purdy somehow struggles, they'll find a way to mask it and they'll get the win. I just don't see it happening. I was shocked by those 3 straight losses, but now, like I said, a bye week, they're rested, they come back, they annihilate the Jaguars. The Bucs are not better than the Jaguars, so I don't see how they don't win this game. Does that make sense? Yeah, it does. It's Baker Mayfield. You better not let Baker Mayfield. That is the worst. And trust me, I've endured it. You do not want to be getting beat by Baker Mayfield. Come on now. Niners over Bucs. Next, you got Jets at Bills. I got to go with the Bills in this one. I don't see the Bills losing to the Jets twice in 1 year, getting swept after that, crazy overtime punt return that the Jets did in the first game of the season, and beating the Bills. The Bills want payback. The Bills have to be able to contend in this AFC East in order to get into the playoffs, because the Dolphins are clearly ahead of them. But then if the Dolphins beat the Raiders, then they're going to be 7-3, and the Bills need to be 6-5 to stay somewhat close to them. They need to be able to stay 6-5, so they can't afford to lose to this team. And I mean, they shouldn't have a problem. I get the Jets defense is tough, but if the Bills defense can somewhat stifle Zach Wilson, I mean, you should have the game on lock, even if you win by a field goal. So picking the Bills over the Jets. Next, you've got Seahawks at Rams. It seems like the Seahawks are coming back down to earth, but I still think that they're better than the Rams. I get Geno Smith. He's got to clean up his his turnovers and whatnot. He's got to make sure that he keeps and protects the football. But I don't see the Rams they're just not a good football team overall. Oh, Matthew Stafford's back. He's healthy. What does that really mean? Matthew Stafford seems like he's always playing hurt. And so if he's always playing hurt, he's never 100%. I don't believe he's 100% now. Just because he's back and he's playing doesn't mean he's 100%. So you got that. They really still don't have a running game. Is Cooper Kupp going to play? Is he not? They don't really have any great other good wide receivers in the net. Nakua, I like Nakua. but that's not enough to me. So you've got to be able to put together more than that to me to beat the Seahawks. I'm going to go with the Seahawks in this game. Like I said, Geno Smith to me is impressive enough to where he will play. And then, yeah, it seems like they're dwindling a little bit, but their offense is still good. It's just a question of whether their defense is going to be up to par. I think they can handle it. It might be a close game, but I'll pick the Seahawks in this one. I can't trust the Rams. I can't trust the Rams. They're not what they were. They're not even close to what they were when they won the Super Bowl, and that wasn't that long ago. So I cannot trust the Rams for anything right now. Unless it's just, they're facing the Cardinals or something. Other than that, I can't trust the Rams. Next, you got Vikings at Broncos. This is going to be probably, and I will say, this is probably, might be the game of the week. Because you've got the Vikings who have won 5 straight, and they've got Josh Dobbs at quarterback, and he's doing well, even just coming in from the trade. And then you've got the Broncos who all of a sudden they look like they want to play now. Now they look like they want to play. And the Broncos are at 4-5. So it's Josh Dobbs versus Russell Wilson. This one's tough, but I'm going to give the edge to the Vikings. I think because slightly I would say their defense will give give Russell Wilson a lot more headaches than and then Josh Dobbs. I think he's going to have a tough time against the Broncos, even though their defense is bad. But I think that it'll be enough. He'll have enough to get past them. And with their passing attack against the Broncos' 29th ranked defense, I get how they all of a sudden rose up and beat the Chiefs. But is that something that you can see is going to be a consistent thing with the Broncos? That's hard for me to believe right now. So unless they can just control the clock and make this a low-scoring running game and defensive battle, I don't see the Broncos winning this one against a high-powered offensive team, even with a relatively new quarterback who probably still doesn't know all his teammates' names right now. But they can make it work with their passing game. To me, they can make it work with their defense. If Russell Wilson has any type of issues passing the football, they're not winning. The Broncos are not winning with just a running game and no defense and no passing game. Not this game. Like I said, I don't know how they beat the Chiefs. They put something in the Chiefs' food before they came, in their pregame meal. Something happened. That's what the Broncos did. That's the only way they beat the Chiefs. And but like I said, I can't see that being, because even when bad teams all of a sudden rise up and beat a good team, they don't just start a winning streak. They go back down to where they were, and they start to be mediocre again, and they're high and they're low, they're hot and they're cold, they're hot and they're cold. They just happen to be hot that week when they faced a really good team. But then all of a sudden they play down to the level of the team that is worse than the team that they beat. That's how these teams are. So you have to show me consistency in order for me to pick you, unless the other team is just hands down worse than you. And the Vikings are not worse than the Broncos. So I got to pick the Vikings. That is your Sunday night football matchup. And then we get to your Monday night football matchup, one that everybody wants to see. And of course, rightfully so, them picking this for a Monday night football matchup. Eagles at Chiefs. 8-1 Eagles at the 7-2 Chiefs. For me, if you think about, the Chiefs have lost to the Lions, and they've lost in the first game of the season, and they've lost to the Broncos, which was weird. And the Eagles, for being 8-1, I think it's really good. This is probably going to be another knockdown, drag-out fight, but I think it's because of Eric Bieniemy not being there that I have to give the edge to the Eagles. I really do have to give the edge to the Eagles. Could these teams meet again in the Super Bowl? Yes, I hope not. But I very much do see that they could meet again in the Super Bowl, just because the Chiefs are a very strong team, and there's not much competition left in the AFC with all these quarterbacks going down. And then the Eagles, they could I want to say run the gauntlet. That's not the right phrase, but they're battle tested They be probably broken and beaten up getting into the Super Bowl, but they can do it because they did it last year. And then, these two teams meet again. But I think the lack of Eric Bieniemy being there for the Chiefs when they face the best teams and they face the elite teams, they're not going to run through them all. Somebody's going to upstart them. So whether that's the Ravens in the AFC Championship game or whether it's whatever team that they face in the Super Bowl, I think that Eric Bieniemy not being there is going to eventually bite him in the behind. And you'll see why Eric Bieniemy should be a head coach and why the Chiefs have been successful for five or six straight AFC championship appearances. And that's to me, it's because of Eric Bieniemy. And so you combine that with the superstar that is Pat Mahomes, it makes sense. I mean, why are the Chiefs now 14th ranked in offense? Even with them not having a running game and not having a true featured running back, their passing game would usually be number 2 or number 1 to where they're just annihilating everybody with the passing game. They don't have any wide receivers that are super elite. And so everything is about Travis Kelce in the passing game. So, I mean, to me, eventually people are going to figure you out. They're going to find a way to beat that combo. You can annihilate the bad teams, but when you face the elite teams who have multiple ways of beating you and you are one-dimensional, no running game, passing game, your featured wide receiver is a tight end, and you don't have Tyreek Hill anymore, and you don't have anybody else who's even close or even resembles something like Tyreek Hill in your wide receiving core, it's like they're going to get to they're going to win the division, they're going to get to the playoffs, but then it's a toss-up with the Chiefs. And facing these elite teams, to me, it's I want to say a recipe for a disaster, but I can't see the Chiefs getting there without Eric Bieniemy, because that offensive play calling and what he does to amplify Pat Mahomes' game, to amplify the offense, to utilize different players. I mean, Pat Mahomes is not a coach. Yes, he's smart, he's brilliant, but he's not a coach. And I really think that this is a detriment to the Chiefs not having Bieniemy there, but rightfully so, because he should have had a head coaching job by now. But anyway, we're going to go with the Eagles here, picking the Eagles over the Chiefs for Monday Night Football in Kansas City. And that will conclude our live stream here for Scout Team Sports. I am your host, DeValiant. Please continue to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And as we try to grow this channel, I appreciate everyone for watching, for viewing. Believe until you stop breathing. This is DeValiant Sports. Tune in for the Midweek Scramble every Wednesday night. That YouTube short that'll be there. And we'll eventually, we'll continue to work on trying to get this whole landscape thing figured out for the live stream as far as the portrait. But if anybody knows a surefire way for me to get it to landscape without it locking portrait mode, and portrait mode is already unlocked, let me know. I would greatly appreciate it. Again, this is DeValiant with Scout Team Sports. Believe until you stop breathing. We'll see you next week.